I don't know, do I have to put on my acting face for you or what I'm doing? How's the light?
It's good.
Is it?
It's not. It wasn't really a question of the light. It was. I just didn't know how to use this properly. That's all. I read the manual.
Oh yeah.
So you're in focus now. So we're good. That was the problem, really. Was a question of focus.
How do you implement focus on it?
You have to click halfway down on the shutter,
Oh really?
and then you can lock it.
Ah.
So this is looking good right now. Do you want to go talk? How do you want to? Do you want to start with a particular area or?
Well, I might perhaps borrow the thing of the old chronological or the history of putting the bakery together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure where to start. Well, I just will plunge.
Why don't you do the history of your bread from Pain Richard, or is that going to take too long
Oh yeah.
to get to here via the whale place? And
Well, I can even do that before I can start the first bread that I sold. What was the name? Oh yeah, okay. First bread that I made to sale, for sale was when I couldn't get a job. I was unemployed. I think I was getting unemployment insurance. And we were living on De Courcelles in Saint Henri, and across Notre Dame, at the intersection of De Courcelles and Notre Dame, was a dépanneur. And it was run by a guy from Ontario. And he ran his boys on their bicycles with their beer-carrying fronts, baskets. And he'd married a Montréalaise. And I guess he had a little bit of money, and he bought this Lalonde's dépanneur. And he would always answer when you went in, "Dat Lalonde." He had a phenomenal Anglo accent, right at the heart of Saint Henri. And so Martha said, "Look, if you want to sell bread, why don't you make some bread and see if you can sell it over there in the dépanneur?" And I could sell every loaf of bread that I could make. I used to make little pan loaves, whole wheat pan loaves, nice little breads. They worked out, and Detmer alone sold, I don't know, 12, 16 of those a week. And that was encouraging because I was trying to get jobs in Montreal as an apprentice in a bakery. And the second thing that's kind of humorous that occurred, I didn't know anything about baking, certainly nothing about professional baking. Had never made a loaf until 1983, I guess. A loaf of bread at all in my life. I was rather amazed that anyone could make bread themselves. And so I literally went to the bakeries in Montreal that I liked and asked for work. And they must have been a little in wonderment what a character like me would want to work in a bakery for. Anyway, it was an Italian bakery by Jean Talon Market. And there was this big sort of Italian guy who owned it, a young man, much younger than me, about 30. "You want to bake?" "Yeah." "Oven or table?" I thought, oh geez, what do I say? What am I letting myself in for if he hires me? I thought, well, I don't know what he means by table, so I'll say, oven. I didn't understand the division of labor. I didn't know. Anyway, maybe it was the pause, or maybe he wasn't offering me a job. I don't remember how the conversation ended, and I never got back to talk to him again. Phew! But in busier bakeries, there's a division of labor. And there's oven work, where you stay at the oven and you put stuff in and you bake. In German, a Bäcker. And in English, a baker. But in French, a baker is a boulanger. He makes boule and he works at the table. And French baking, the real emphasis is on dough making. And good bread is made in the dough. And that's what apprenticeship takes. That's where the real skill is. Baking is relatively straightforward. And you can learn baking quite quickly. So when I finally got a job and I was hired at the Au Bon Poisson on St. Mathieu Street, Christmas rush was on and they needed an extra hand at the oven. And so my job was to work the oven. And, I didn't know how to do it. And the first week I went, and I can remember, I went to work and there was one of these gadgets here, a loader, and we put the bread on the loader, and then you cut it. If it were baguettes or demi or boule, you cut it. I wasn't very good at it. And then you run the bread into the oven, and it's a conveyor belt made out of thick duck canvas, and it deposits the bread. And I would say to Régent, the baker from, I was going to say Rivière-du-Loup, but it was a little further down, Rimouski, I think. Okay, when do I take it out? Oh. And this was all in French, and he was a man of few words, and he would go, and I didn't know what he was saying. So I would just wait, and finally he'd say, Richard, pain. Which meant I was supposed to take it out. And we had exactly a copy of this with a much shorter handle, because the oven there was smaller.
Yeah.
And this was the peel, or the pelle in French. And so the bread was pulled out, and to put it on a rack, we made so much bread at Au Bon Poisson. Very often, as it was coming out, there was almost no place to put it. We were making about 400 baguettes a night. Then the owners thought that there was increasing interest in healthy bread, and they said, well, you better make whole wheat. So we made 100 whole wheat baguettes every night, 80 to 100, and they started to sell. And we just made a few assorted breads, and then at the end of the day, we made pain fantaisie for children. So we'd make little alligators or little rabbits, little lapins, and for eyes you put raisins. Those are two that I remember that we made. And usually we were so tired by then that we really disliked making them. Because my job, I was starting about 9 o'clock at night, and we'd be making the pain fantaisie about 11 o'clock the next morning. It was a very long shift of 14, 16 hours. And the idea was we'd work 1 week on and 1 week off, but because I was the apprenti at first, I was working plein temps, full time. When we looked for a place decided to set up a bakery. And anyway, we eventually were offered a building in North Head, belonged to the Bird and Whale Research Station, run by a zoologist, marine zoologist from Guelph University, and he brought down honor students or MA students would spend the summer. And they offered, I think, $1 for every porpoise that was shot in the wares, and they collected these things. Their carcasses in the name of research. I never learned what any research they did, but maybe they did some serious research. Anyway, a lot of those the carcasses, when we moved in, were in the basement resting. It was up to me to pick them up and get them out of there. And I discovered that the sink that we were going to use to wash our pots and pans and stuff, it just ran into the basement. So we had to make emergency repairs, and then the room that was the bakery was there was a hole in the floor, so I had to build the floor, repair the floor. My sister Peggy loaned us $10,000, with which we bought an old pizza oven, an old mixer. I learned later that that mixer went out of production in 1956. And then I made the pieces of equipment, and we bought one old baker's bench. And I had to finish my work by 9 in the morning when the bakery opened, because it became our sales counter. And Martha used a tobacco tin to put the money in. And we opened the door. I seem to recall our revenue from that first day of operation was $9 and I think 63 cents. That winter, Islanders responded very warmly to us, and business just kept growing and growing, encouraged us to go further, and so we bought this building. And the pizza oven was so wobbly. It had not the real legs, and it had other legs, and it literally sort of, if there had been a wind, it might have blown it over. And it was a pizza oven, not a bread oven, so it tended to burn the bread quite badly on top. It was not too bad for baguettes. And, anyway, so we managed to collect, we used the old mixer that we'd found before, and got a professional oven from a baker that decided he wanted to leave his bakery in Nova Scotia and his wife there. And we picked up some of his equipment, and we opened up here. So this is the fournil, or in English is the bakery. It's built around an oven that our business was too strong to survive with this much smaller oven. And in 1993 we put in, this is a much bigger oven than you would need for our operation, but as they say here when they buy their new pickups, the price was right. And so it's a bit like buying a car, and they say, well, there's the car, and we'll sell it to you for $18,000 or something, and then we'll charge you $2,000 to deliver it to you. Suddenly there's figures, that were added on. In oven stuff, you have to hire a monteur, someone who'll put it together. And Jacques Cartier arrived from Montreal with a rented 1-ton van, and I remember it came along the road sort of sideways, and the ass end was leaned over, because it's 8,000 pounds, and he had a 1-ton truck and put 4 tons aboard. And it took him 6 days to dismantle the other ovens and build this oven, and that was 1993, and it's worked like a charm ever since. I've changed 1 light bulb and maybe 3 contactors. So French ovens are categorized by how many baguettes deep and how many doors they are. So and the biggest French ovens these are deck ovens, are 3 baguettes deep, and they're of modular construction. So this is an 8-door 3 baguette deep. That's why it has a long loader. So it's effectively 9 feet by 6, and there are 4 decks. So we can bake 80 baguettes at a crack easily without missing a beat. So it would have polished off the load from the Au Bon Croissant easily. I think the thing that's kind of interesting is this business about dough and the significance of dough and how you handle dough. And we opened just as there was it was called, it was kind of a retro movement, but a rediscovery of old forms of baking, and to stop the emphasis on high-speed mixing. So, and this has now become standard, that you mix slowly, you don't mix very long, and you allow the fermentation of the bread to produce texture and taste. Whereas where we learned on what was called the no-time system. So we baked the bread we mixed hard and long and high speed with a fork mixer like this. You mixed for 3 or 4 minutes until you got the hydration done, and then the kneading of it went on for 20 minutes in second gear. First gear of these kinds of mixers, 40 RPM. Second gear is usually about double. That's, I think, 78 or 79. And I had found a mixer that was twice this size. It turned out it was way too big for us. At any rate, and when we were exporting bread to the mainland, that mixer was quite useful, because we finally were using enough flour that the mixer would work. So now I mix in this mixer maybe 6 minutes in first gear and then shut it down. And so it would only have in the number of revolutions would be maybe 240 revolutions, as opposed to about 2,000 the other way. Bread making begins with just mixing flour and water, and you
stand by it, and then we'll.
Flour's in this corner, water's in that sink, and it's mixed either in this, which is a planetary mixer. There's a planetary gear here, and has the spindle go around the shape of this planetary gear, and that forces it to turn, to which the dough hooks, the dough utensils, the hooks or the beaters or whatever are attached, and they go around inside the bowl. This is a 40-quart bowl. And American mixers, this is an American Hobart. This 60-quart bowl just means if you fill that up with 60 quarts of water, and normally the capacity of these things is about 50%, maximum capacity is about 50%. Okay, we're standing in the shop of the North Head Bakery, and we have the standard French way of running a bakery. There's a division between the shop, la boutique, and le fournil, the bakery. And the division of labor is the baker is in charge. He's the artisan, and his wife runs the boutique. So this is Martha's domain, explicitly, officially, and she has largely been the one who works with the clerks, and we normally run with about 10 employees, and 6 or 7 of them, even 8 of them, will work in the shop. In the bakeries, I usually have an assistant. Occasionally I've had 2 assistants. The shop, most of the arrangement and the equipment here I either built or managed to find it somewhere. But to give you an idea, here's these 2 counters that I built them. And this one has a nice thick marble top. This one is a maple bench top. The marble I found in a shop in St. Stephen, a machine shop. And he had 3 pieces of marble. This was one, and the other 2 I cut in half, and we used to make a counter for customers. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but you see the chairs are upside down on the marble counter, and I managed to cut it in half. These bits of marble were the printing tables, or the composition tables for the St. Croix Courier. And about 1975 or so, they went to a more modern form of printing, and they didn't need them any longer, and they were getting rid of them. And there was no value to them particularly, so this machinist, who could see they were nice things, he bought them, and when I saw them, they were in a pile of stuff about this high in his machine shop, and they were at the bottom. And sitting above them were all these sheets of steel, 1/4 inch, 5/8 and 1/2 inch steel, heavy bits of steel. So anyway, we managed to get them on my pickup, and it was not a bad price that I paid for them. And a week later I thought, gee, I should have bought that 3rd piece, because it's really nice stuff. I called them up. They'd been sitting in the shop for 30 years. Somebody else had appeared and bought the other piece. So, anyway, we got 2. And this is so heavy that I was worried. I had to build really a strong counter, as I didn't want that darn thing to fall over. It takes 2 strong people to lift it. I don't know what the weight is. Anyway, this is our main counter. I think when I put these up, I could walk straight through here, but I can't do it anymore. But in fact, we had one lady working for us who couldn't get through there, period. Had to go a separate route to get behind. Now, it might be interesting if you can follow me with the camera. We'll see some of the other things, and I'll stop first of all right here. This is an arrangement that was made in 2 different attempts, but I wanted nice wood, and so I managed to find in St. John some very rough oak boards, and that's why I bought the table saw. So I manufactured, as they say, all these slim boards, and then sanded them and cut them and so on. And then I had an initial design, the idea being having a central area for baguettes and putting the lesser spectacular beds on the sides. And then about 3 years ago I decided to reorganize it, and so there are now a lighting fixture behind there, and this seems to be more successful, this second version. So that's the main display unit for breads, and it's quite nice because you can bring bread straight from the oven and deposit them right there, and so they're immediately available for sale, and so they bring their aroma with them and their looks, their glistening, and so on. Yeah. I said this is a constructor that I constructed this. Anyway, I'm responsible for this. It was built in about 5 different stages. But first, we put a plumbed filter coffee machine, and we got this from the Cafe Gourmet in Montreal. I bought this. It's our second version of a plumbed filter coffee thing, and that's from a supplier in Moncton. To do that, and then I had to bring water here to have a sink. And then we bought a cheap little fridge so we could use it to hold cream down there. These one of Richard's doors. See, and this is our floor washing device. In here sits, like here, a tub of either icing sugar or brown sugar. Here's our second-hand espresso Rancilio from the Cafe Gourmet. And it's about 30 years old. And it's a heavy-duty pro model with 2 heads. I think I have to renew this portafilter this winter if we are to open in the spring. This building was constructed as a store residence, and it's been a great boon for us to run the bakery. We could not run the bakery the way we do if we were in a separate residence. It is also makes us a bit like a farmer, that we're tied to our business in a very intimate way, and sometimes that's quite difficult to sustain over a long period of time. Because we're at home, we open the door, we're in a commercial establishment, and we're at home, and our children are our children. They come in through the door, and they become employees. And that's a divide that is sometimes very difficult to sustain. Another one of Richard's counters. It's a way of covering this retail dishwasher, and we store a meat slicer for our sandwiches, and sandwich production goes on here. This is another one of Richard's shelves, which is an old fridge shelf, I think, that I've put in here. And the shelving that, when we came, the shelving originally did the whole area, in the bakery and in the shop. So I removed most of the shelving, but we kept a little bit, as you can see around us. This counter comes from the same place as this lovely sink. The nursing home renewed all their kitchen equipment about 15 years ago, and the man Friday, who did everything over there, it was an acquaintance, and he asked us if we were interested. So we bought quite a bit of their equipment. And this is one, and there's this really nice, looks like it was a cook's bench, but we've turned it into a baker's bench, and our pastry chef, our pastry cook, I should say, works here. Another one of Richard's benches here. That's the bread slicer sits over it, and these shelves are used for special orders, that people, advance orders or whatever, and they wait there until the customers come in. The customers are all placed here. That's why we have the days of the week, and the customer's order is placed. When it is made, it's put with the order. When the customer comes in, it goes off, and that way we try to make no mistakes on screwing up on orders. It's very embarrassing. So the theory of that is to promise little and deliver big. The donut making corner. We have a robot donut maker. An extractor hood that I bought secondhand a long time ago in St. John at a bakery that had gone bust, and managed to got these bits of tin made up for exhausts, and then I bought a extractor fan which is outside. We got it wired up, and you can, I don't know if you can hear this, but it's a bit like a plane getting ready to take off. 2,500 cubic feet a minute. And so that just brings a lot of air in, and is the bane of the baker's existence in many ways. A cart made for me to carry either mix, like a donut mix, sugar, baking powder. And this is our first baker's bench, 2.5-inch solid maple. And I built these shelves, or these drawers, so that I could put bread in there. So this is my first version of making a baker's bench, and it was more or less a copy of the model that I had worked in Montreal. This was a donut making station which I converted. We used the shelves below just to put cookie sheets, and instead of there was a bath. So it was used for putting glaze, and you'd have a bath.